Hello everyone and welcome to the Week 11 ONIT Recap Show. This week brought us a bunch of near upsets, some big time victories, and a lot of one possession games. We're going to get into all of that here in just a moment, but before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel by hitting that subscribe button down below. It really helps us out and it makes sure that you don't miss any of our future videos. And speaking of future videos, if you want to be a part of some of our next YouTube videos, all you got to do is stick around to the end of the show to find out how you can become a part of our featured content. With that all said, why don't we take a look at what is in our Week 11 box.
What's in the box?
Our Week 11 ONIT recap box features our two ONIT versus ONIT matchups that we'll cover in great detail. Then we'll take a look at our 5 elite performers from the weekend. And lastly, we'll close it off by taking a look ahead at what all of our ONIT teams have coming up next on the schedule. So let's get right into it and talk about Alabama and LSU. Our first of two ONIT matchups this weekend, Alabama at home in Tuscaloosa, the number 4 Crimson Tide, taking on the LSU Tigers without Brian Kelly. How would the Tigers look? Would they come out backs against the wall, playing with everything to give, or would they come out timid and scared? I think we got our answer. It was a defensive struggle in this game for the first quarter for sure. Only 3 points were put up on the board courtesy of an Alabama field goal. Things finally started rolling offensively in the second when Alabama was able to get into the end zone. Ty Simpson with a passing touchdown and then a rushing touchdown for Daniel Hill helped Alabama kind of open this one up, and from there it was no contest. LSU could not move the football in this game. Nussmeier held to just 121 passing yards. He completed 18 of 21 passes, but they just weren't going anywhere. He actually ended up getting benched later on in this game for Michael Van Buren, while Alabama, they missed on a couple of deep shots. Ty Simpson had the opportunity to really break this game open, but he was just missing receivers on a couple of these deep posts, on these go balls. If a couple of those would have connected, this would have looked very differently for Alabama, although it was still a very comfortable win. Simpson finished the day 277 yards, 21 of 35 through the air, and that touchdown. His favorite target was Jeremy Bernard, who had 3 catches for 79 yards. And Deontay Lawson wreaked havoc once again. One of the premier linebackers in college football. 9 tackles, 5 of them solo, as the Crimson Tide shut the door on LSU from getting into the end zone, and they keep their playoff hopes and SEC Conference Championship hopes alive with this win. So Alabama improves to 8-1, still 6-0 in the SEC, as LSU falls to 5-4, 2-4 in the SEC, and we're going to talk about another undefeated SEC team coming up next. That's right, our ONIT game of the week featured an undefeated team out of the SEC in Texas A&M going on the road to Missouri to take on the Missouri Tigers. And let me tell you, Texas A&M is still rolling 9-0, 6-0 in the SEC as they drop Missouri to 6-3 and 2-3 in the SEC. The Aggies win it 38-17. Game that they were comfortably in control of until the fourth quarter hit. That's when things started to get a little shaky maybe for Texas A&M, but the defense so stifling. Matt Zollers, we talked about him making his first collegiate start in this game. Well, for Zollers, it did not go the way that he would have liked. 7 of 22 for 77 yards through the air. Finishes the day with a quarterback rating of 17.4. It was never going to be easy for Zollers, and I can't blame Zollers for the performance because he was under constant duress. We've talked about Cassius Howell multiple times on these shows. He was a difference maker, as he usually is. He got home for a sack. He was all over the Missouri offensive line, and it was just constant pressure. Damian Sanford got in there for a huge strip sack fumble that set up a Texas A&M touchdown as well. There was just no answer really for Zollers when it came to having the time to throw and find his open receivers. Not the same for Marcel Reed. On the other side, 20 of 29, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air for the A&M quarterback. He continued his stellar play. It wasn't a blow the doors off performance by any means for Reed, but he did absolutely everything that he needed to do and a little bit more. It was a great performance, don't get me wrong. In terms of a guy who is in the Heisman running, he is definitely, it's not a performance that eliminated him. In fact, I would say it definitely very much keeps him in the Heisman contention. He got great performances on the ground too. Reuben Owens, 13 carries from 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. EJ Smith fell into the end zone. Dalton Brooks had 1 carry and went for 48 yards. So the ground game was alive and humming for the Aggies, and that's where things turned around in the fourth quarter. That's how Missouri was able to get on the board in this game. Jamal Roberts, 17 carries, 110 yards, and a touchdown. Ahmad Hardy, 13 carries, 109 yards, and a touchdown. All of that production really happened in the fourth quarter. Hardy busted off a long run for a touchdown. Roberts was pounding away with 6.5 yards per carry, but Texas A&M had amassed such a lead at that point that it was pretty much impossible for Missouri to come back in the game, especially when they were not able to throw the football. So the Aggies remain undefeated. They keep it up. Can this miraculous season for Texas A&M continue? They've only got a couple more regular season games left, and they look destined to be on a collision course with Alabama in that SEC championship game, but they got a couple of big games that they still have to win, including Week 14 matchup looming against Texas. We'll see how it all shakes out, but let's see how the rest of our ONIT teams performed. A look at the rest of our teams and how they performed over Friday and Saturday, beginning with number 1 Ohio State, as they cruise to another easy victory, this time in West Lafayette, Indiana, taking down Purdue 34-10. The final scores, the Buckeyes go to 9-0 and 6-0 in the Big Ten still. CJ Donaldson getting across the line twice for a pair of touchdowns in this game. Sayan had another great game, 303 yards, a touchdown, did throw an interception, and a lot of that yardage came to, once again, Jeremiah Smith, 10 for 137 and a touchdown for Jeremiah Smith, who as a sophomore continues to prove that he is one of the best wide receivers in the country. For Ohio State, they will remain in the number 1 spot most assuredly going into this week's AP and college football playoff rankings, but the one thing you can't say about Ohio State, they haven't necessarily been tested so far all season. That's really not a concern to me at this point. They have looked absolutely like the number 1 team in college football all season long, beating down on every opponent that has been put in front of them. Ohio State, big win over Purdue. USC, number 20 USC, or number 19 in the college football playoff ranking. 38-17 win over Northwestern. For our East Coast folks, don't know if you stayed up late enough to watch this one on Friday night, but it was a great game. Jaden Mayava got back on track, passing for nearly 300 yards, had 2 touchdowns, had a rushing touchdown as well on the ground. King Miller into the end zone, 15 carries for him, 127 yards, and a touchdown. But Mekhi Lemon, much like Ohio State, where Jeremiah Smith was the star, Mekhi Lemon, 11 catches for 161 yards. That is a career high for Lemon. Also had a touchdown through the air on the first drive of the game for USC, and then he came back later with a rushing touchdown, 4-yard rushing score. Finished his day with 165 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns on those 11 catches and a carry. Very nice day for Lemon. Nice day for the Trojans as the playoff hopes stay alive. Really disappointing day for Washington as they lose on the road in Madison, 13-10 to Wisconsin. This was an ugly game in terms of how the weather looked, and then it was marred by injury. Wisconsin lost their starting quarterback early on in the contest, and then for Washington, Denzel Boston got injured. He was clearly playing banged up. Same could be said for Damon Williams Jr. He had a issue with one of his legs around the second, third quarter period. And then Jonah Coleman left this game and basically did not return. So the 3 superstars on offense for Washington all dealt with some type of injury in this contest, played a big reason in why they couldn't get over the line on the road against Wisconsin. For Florida, a 38-7 loss at Kentucky. Offense just sputtered, was stuck in the mud, could not get anything going against those Kentucky Wildcats. Same could be said for Florida State, a 24-10 loss against Clemson. For whatever reason, Tommy Castellanos and his receivers just not on the same page in this game as Clemson was able to jump out to an early lead. Florida State had to try to throw the ball to get back into the game, and they just were not able to move the chains through the air. Iowa State, big win for them. They look like a team that was on the brink offensively as well. They went down 17-6 at one point on the road at TCU, but a punt return touchdown, a huge fumble recovery that was stripped by Trey Brown, set up the Cyclones for what would be the game-winning touchdown. So a big comeback for Iowa State through special teams and defense. Rocco Beck started to make some things happen. And then he had a nice little run to seal the game as well for the Cyclones as they upset TCU on the road in Fort Worth. Kansas wasn't able to hold on the road in Tucson. They were at Arizona. They were up 2017 late in the fourth quarter, but a long extended drive from Arizona that ended in a touchdown meant that Kansas fell 24-20 in that ball game. And Nebraska on the road at UCLA trying to do something they hadn't done since the 90s, which was win in Pasadena. Well, they got that done. Emmett Johnson, huge day, over 200 all-purpose yards for the Cornhuskers. He also scored 3 times, twice through the air and once on the ground. And with no Dylan Raiola, Latif getting it done for Nebraska in the 28-21 win. Wow, Penn State so close to pulling off the upset against Indiana. 27-24 as the Nittany Lions lose their 6th straight game and remain winless in the Big Ten. They gave the Hoosiers all they could handle. After it looked like the lights were turned out on Penn State, they were down 20-7 in the second half, but a Nick Singleton rushing touchdown and receiving touchdown all of a sudden had them up 24-20. Things were looking up for Penn State, but disaster. They let Indiana drive basically the length of the entire football field. An amazing catch in the back of the end zone for Omar Cooper Jr. sealed the fate for the Nittany Lions as this season once again just delivered them another crushing body blow as they cannot find ways to finish football games. That's been the story of the year for Penn State. It showed up once again here. Nicholas Singleton, great game, 10 carries, 71 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 catches, 22 yards, and a touchdown. Responsible for the entirety of the Nittany Lions scoring work in the touchdown department. But at the end of the day, not enough to get it done for Penn State. Well, meanwhile, on the flip side of that coin, West Virginia got it done against Colorado. It wasn't easy for the Mountaineers, but 29-22, they keep their bowl hopes alive as they're now 2-5 in Big 12 play. They send Colorado to 3-7 and 1-6 in the Big 12. West Virginia is now 4-6, and they seem to have found something here with Scotty Fox Jr. He looked like a freshman at times throughout this game, threw the 2 interceptions. Did have a touchdown, though, that helped West Virginia extend their lead over Colorado there in the second quarter. But a solid game all around for West Virginia. Diori Hubbard coming out of the backfield for 6 catches and 94 yards. Also had 16 carries and 64 yards. He played a great game, just couldn't get into the end zone for the Mountaineers. And all in all, it was a good job doing what they needed to do for West Virginia. They want to be bowl eligible. They want to play in a bowl game at the end of the year. This was a nice win that can help them do that. Now they just need to string together 2 more over the course of these final 3 weeks of the regular season. That's all for our ONIT teams in action this week. So let's move on and take a look who made the grade thanks to their Friday and Saturday performances. Sundays are for making the grade. This is the time where we look back at our best individual performances throughout the course of the weekend, starting, as always, with our near-min 8s. We'll begin on the defensive side of the ball with NIL for all here at ONIT. Let's talk about Des Ricks as he anchored the A&M secondary with 4 tackles and a pass breakup in a game where they held Missouri to just 7 of 22 for 77 yards through the air in the 38-17 win on the road. Shut down Matt Zollers, and for that performance, Des Ricks and the A&M secondary earned themselves a near mint 8. On the offensive side of the ball, our nearman 8 is Nicholas Singleton for Penn State. He did all he could in a 27-24 loss against number 2 Indiana. 10 carries for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He also added 3 catches for 22 yards and the go-ahead score in the fourth quarter. His final stat line consisted of 93 all-purpose yards and all 3 of Penn State's touchdowns in that losing effort. So because they did not win the game, Singleton gets himself a near mint 8. On to our 9s. Let's begin with Deshaun Singleton from Nebraska. He led the Cornhuskers in their 28-21 win over UCLA with 11 tackles, 8 of them being solo. He also contributed a tackle for loss and broke up a pass in a do-it-all performance for the Cornhuskers defensive back. For that performance and the win, he earns himself a mint 9. And going to the other side of the ball, but staying in Los Angeles, how about Makai Lemon for USC in the Friday night win over Northwestern? He had 11 catches for a career high, 161 yards, also scored a touchdown on USC's first drive of the game. Then he added in a 4-yard rushing touchdown later on in the contest to finish his day with 165 yards and 2 touchdowns in that 38-17 victory over Northwestern in the LA Coliseum. Lemon earns himself a 9 for that performance. There can only be one 10 though. Let us know who you think the 10 should be down in the comments below. And our 10 is Emmett Johnson of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. In the 28-21 win at UCLA, he had 28 carries for 129 yards and a touchdown. Then he also poured in 3 catches for 103 yards and 2 scores. So he had a day where he went over 100 yards on the ground and through the air, finishing the night with 232 yards and 3 total touchdowns. For that performance, Emmett Johnson is our Gem Mint 10 Performer of the Week. You can let us know in the comments below whether we got that right or wrong. Tell us who you think should have made the grade. Now that we've looked at all of our best performers from Week 11, let's take a quick look at what games we have coming up in Week 12. This is a look ahead to Week 12, what we have coming up on the ONIT slate. We've got some big-time ONIT versus ONIT matchups and games with massive playoff implications when you look at something like Iowa at USC, Texas at Georgia. Those games are going to really probably decide some playoff seeding, or in USC's case, a loss might knock them entirely out of the playoff conversation. So we'll see how those shake up. Let us know what game you're most looking forward to down in the comments below. My pick is going to be Oklahoma at Alabama. The Sooners will be rested coming off a bye week. Does that mean better health for John Mateer when it comes to throwing the football? Only time will tell, but Alabama is going to be in another ranked matchup. They won 4 in a row earlier on this season. They've got the blueprint to winning games against ranked opponents. Kalen DeBoer, their head coach, is one of the best in the country when it comes to winning against ranked opponents. So, can Alabama hold the line in Tuscaloosa, or can Oklahoma come in, pull off the upset, and improve their playoff chances? We'll find out next weekend. Can't wait to see that game because it should be a good one. That's all the time we have on the Week 11 recap, but don't fear, we're back with more content. Monday we'll have the AP reaction show, and Thursday brings us the Week 12 preview. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the fun coming up. And if you want to be part of some of these future episodes, all you got to do is go to the link down below. Submit to us your best hits, whether it's a screenshot, a photo, a video, whatever it may be, of your banger autographs, your numbered parallels, your nice looking city limits. Maybe you hit a film ticket autograph in one of our TikTok or whatnot streams. Drop it in the link down below. It'll also be in the description for you to make it easy to access. If you submit your best pulls, we'll show them off and talk about them with the community here in the future. We'd love to have you be a part of our shows, as we appreciate you watching each and every week. Thanks so much, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you back here on Thursday for a Week 12 preview.